My audio levels. I think everything's good. Good. Test, 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 test. Alright, go. Today, I need to look over these changes. There's a lot of changes. So, last time I was setting up Valkey. Valkey is a Redis fork. Redis changed their license. Valkey came out. Up. I'm gonna kill you, bud. So, Valkey is basically Redis. I wanted to set up Valkey in a high availability mode. They have two different modes. One is a sentry mode where you have a primary and you have replicas that you can fail over to. And then the other is an actual clustered mode, but the client needs to understand the clustering, or you need to set up a proxy that understands the clustering. I don't think I'm going to do any of that yet. I wanted to do sentry mode. Would be nice. But unfortunately, the Bitnami chart is what supported sentry mode. And Bitnami did a similar thing where they changed all the licenses on all their stuff, stop updating it, so now no one can use their charts for free anymore. So, yeah. I'm just thinking about how I'm yawning. So that doesn't have to do with staring at my screen or anything. Like, it's literally just talking and thinking about this stuff that makes me yawn. Like, if I wasn't talking about it, I don't think I'd be yawning. So, anyway, Valkey has their own Helm charts, but they're still adding functionality to that. One of the things they're still working on is adding sentry mode. So ultimately, I basically have to do a single pod Valkey deployment, which is fine. If it goes down, you lose your cache temporarily. I need to fail open. Luckily, all of the rate limiting we're doing, like the important rate limiting, goes to the database. So if, for example, things that you only need to allow a certain number hard need limits, those go in the database, and then anything that's, you know, softer limits, those go through cache. And so those fail open. Anything that needs to fail close needs to go through the database. I think it'll stay that way for a while. All right. And so the changes here, we have setting up Valkey, and then we have updating all of the rate limiting in Happy Group server to use Valkey instead of the original setup we had. I do wonder about this. So we set up like an ETS. So within the server, individual nodes, we had rate limiting, and here it just kind of updated all of that to use Redis instead, or Valkey. My experience is when you do this type of stuff, they don't reconsider the priors at all. Like, they don't like making big changes. They'll just work with whatever's there. And so this is the kind of thing where I need to consider, you know, was this set up in the right way in the first place? Or is there something, should this be done differently now? We're using Valkey. I mean, I think overall this was probably a pretty reasonable abstraction where we had our own internal rate limiter. That way we can change out the implementation, so it should be relatively simple. But you can see there's so many changes here. Because yeah, we have this line type cache, and this doesn't use the rate limiter, so we have a few different things that seem to or new rate limiter, back off limiter. Yeah, I want to think about some of this stuff. Are the abstractions here good? Or we have these kind of separate rate limiter implementations? Come on. Yep. What is this? Oh, these are the Luas. They basically load these Luas into Valkey and then... Alright. Do we spin up Valkey locally? Would be. Pretty sure we mock out Valkey. But at present, we have no tests that actually spin up Valkey, spin up a database, really make sure things are working. That's something to consider setting up at some point once I get there. And realistically, God, stop yawning. Realistically, I should probably set up those tests now. It's going to be hard to add the test later. Like if I had that test infrastructure, I could start setting up tests that weren't mocked out. Like where I didn't have to mock out, you know, Vitess or Valkey. Yeah, that thing to do. What about this? I think it's definitely worth doing though. We use SQLite right now. SQLite obviously is not going to match MySQL, let alone Vitess. And then Valkey, we mock it out. We might fail to mock it out correctly. Okay, what is it that's causing me to... Is it the light shining in my face? I debate if I should stop streaming because it does take up time to like get ready to do this. It also makes it so I don't come back to working as much because I want to be streaming everything that I do. And so like if I only have an hour or two, I won't end up working on this because I don't want to start a stream for an hour. And also it prevents me from like stepping away to, you know, take Pup out or go eat or something. So, and I've been thinking recently that I need to be making more progress on this stuff. Like I'd like to be doing 10 hours a day for a couple months at least. Because I think I'd be able to basically get it done. Like the thing for me is, you know, I've been looking at maybe going to companies right now. And like when I go to companies, I'm going to have to just do whatever. I'm not going to have time to work on this. Like I'll be lucky if I have one full day a week to work on this. And so I'd really like it to be at a point where, you know, you can use it. And like then I can make small changes or whatever. But right now, you know, I'm doing these things like Valkey, which don't need to be done to just make this work. I like doing them, and I have time to do them if I really push to get things done. So like if I really put in 10 hours a day for a couple months, I can do everything. That's totally fine. And I have enough money to hold me over for a couple months. I mean, unless World War III starts. The issues. I mean, I'm so frustrated that I am not making more progress. Because, you know, if I end up at a company or a hedge fund or something, I won't be able to work on this anymore. And I would be okay with that if I had gotten it to a point where I was like, you know, hey, you can use it, end-to-end encrypted. And then I could kind of just slowly add some little features or test it out myself, you know? So I'm just frustrated. And like I'm yawning when I do this. And is it because I'm streaming? Because I literally start yawning as soon as I start talking on stream. Before that, not yawning at all. So, yeah, I think part of that too is maybe what I talk about on stream, I already know, right? Like, I did the Valkey stuff yesterday. I'm talking about, or yesterday, the day before yesterday. I'm talking about all this stuff. I already know what happened with this stuff. So, like, I'm having to think about it and think about how to tell someone else whatever it is, and that's just not exciting for me. I do find the streams useful. Like, it's a demonstration that I can build this stuff. Because when you show people this stuff, they have no idea how hard it is, how long it takes, what you have to set up, what you did set up. All that stuff's kind of complicated. I like having the streams and titles of the stream, so even for myself, I can see how much time I spent working on this stuff. But I think maybe I should stop talking on the streams. I think that's what I might do. I might just stop caring what I say on the streams, and then I still get the recordings. I still get a sense of what happened. But you know, you can't really watch the VODs for any meaningful reason. At that point, you know, I could just upload the videos after the fact instead of streaming them. Audio levels are a little high. So I could just do recordings and then upload the recordings. Because I think I need to just focus. But if I do recordings, you know, I still have that issue that I have chunks of time where I want to step away from the computer. With the recordings, it's easier. At least I can splice them together. I can stop recording, start recording again, splice together. But splicing stuff together, it doesn't take a ton of time, but it does takes minutes to do this, upload it. I don't know. And the audio is helpful for myself when I go back and watch it, like to think about my reasoning, where I'm at. Like, it's a little bit of like a journal aspect to it too. But right now, I mean, no one's watching the VODs. So this like effort I put into thinking about what I did, explaining it on stream is not particularly helpful, but I don't know. Just want happy groups done, man. Want end-to-end encrypted groups. I don't care if someone else builds it. They do a good job, I don't care. Give me end-to-end encrypted groups. Not group chat, not like group chat. Looking for a place where you can share stuff long-term. Keep access to it and not have it fly by. Get lost. Okay, Jordan, let's go. What are we doing? Two things going on. So I need to review the Valkey stuff. I need to deploy the Valkey stuff. You. I'm just trying to come to a conclusion about what I should do for the streams. Because I got to... I've got to make some decisions here. like even doing these live streams and VODs, to make them actually useful, I really feel like they need timestamps. You can always go back and add timestamps later. Then like even to make them really useful, you have to cut them down. So I'm kind of like splitting my attention between too many things right now. I feel like they all have value, it's just I've got to focus. I have reasons for doing all of them. I do everything. Not all at once. What do I want to do? I'm making progress, you know, I've been doing all these things. It's just not, it's not fast enough. The trouble is if let's say I drop everything and just focus on getting this done. No streaming, no distractions. It's this. The chance that this is useful, like that people use it, that it matters, is very low. I don't know what the chance is, but I mean, in my head, like if I make it, you know, if I use it, then it has value to me. There's a lot of value to me, right? But the issue with that is that that's great if I don't need to work, I don't need money, then the value to me is completely enough. So the trouble is that, you know, if I'm gonna run out of money in some period of time, in theory, if you got this done, that should help you get jobs. It should help you get higher level positions and stuff. People should be able to look at it and see what you did. My experience is that it's not true at all. You could have built Google or you could have built the most complex thing in the world, and people for the most, like engineers at companies, wouldn't understand. They wouldn't spend even 5 minutes looking at what you did. Even if they did spend 5 minutes, a lot of times they just don't have the experience to understand what was hard or what wasn't hard. So, you know, having something like this done doesn't really help me get jobs, make more money, anything like that in itself. Obviously, it makes my skills better, but that just doesn't actually translate to how much money you make. It's a very indirect translation. It's correlated. It's just not. That's about it. So I don't know. Do I focus on the thing that I care about, or do I hedge? Like the streaming is a little bit of a hedge. There's another reason to do it too, but because the thing for me is if I get a job right now, I'm basically doing that job for some number of years, and I'm not making progress on happy. It's just too hard to do it in a way that I would be happy with. I would have to give up being happy with the project to do the project, which I don't know if I could do that. Shouldn't have spent the money building the barn. I thought I was willing to sell the Vegas house, but I'm not willing to sell that right now because my relatives live there. If I could take out an equity line of credit on the house, that'd be great, but I have no income. I could borrow from my 401k, that'd also be great. I just need more time. Like it's just, I want to do this before I go back to a job. Like I don't mind going back to a job. It's just I want to get this done. It's so that it exists, and then I'll go back to a job. Although I wouldn't mind going to like Signal, because at Signal maybe they'd be interested in doing this or doing some variation of this, and then also I would learn the end-to-end encryption. The biggest issue for me with going to Signal is that there's already people there. They have opinions. You know, like I'm making trade-offs here around security versus usability of the app, and those kind of trade-offs are really hard to make holistically within a company or just a group of people. So I think the final thing comes out better if I can just make all the decisions and make all the trade-offs. Because then you just have a cohesive idea. It's just that, again, Signal would probably lean towards super private setup, which my sense is that my sense is that at a company you end up with just a worse product overall, unless there's one person really making all the high level decisions. It's fine, like if people come together and say, hey, you know, maybe this will work or whatever. It's a little bit how Apple was. You know, Steve delegated to different people to try different things and have multiple people working on the same things, and then all that comes together and he makes the final choice as to what's going in the product or not. And you hit and miss like anything, but at least the final product is cohesive. And that's something that most companies can't compete with because they don't have processes. You get diffusion of responsibility. I was thinking that today about the US politics. That's like such a big issue with US politics, is the diffusion of responsibility. Like when people vote, they don't feel like their vote directly relates to the thing, and then no one has to actually take ownership over any bad decision, and in any context. Like, well, I supported that, but not this. You know, allows people to always. But maybe that's better. I don't know. Okay. It's just funny to me how complicated all this stuff is, and I can explain it all, but I don't know how many people can understand it all. So you're in this situation where you interview for a company or something, any one part someone might understand, but they don't understand that every single part is like that. Like, and usually the things I'm explaining are things that even for areas that people are familiar with, they're not things that they've thought about that much. So. And so then, you know, like if I'm going and doing it, it's like I'm doing leak code problem. Like, what are we doing here? I'll stop streaming and focus on building. Is that what I want? Do I want to keep streaming? Let's write some stuff. Oop. Oh, I don't have the install on here. I hate Apple Notes for... Wrong word. Strongly dislike. Keep streaming. I mean, I should be talking. Make sure I'm keep streaming and talking on stream, making incremental progress. keep streaming. Don't worry about talking on stream. More progress. Worry about VODs. Stream payments. Record only. Upload later. Still. Would still need to spend a little time splicing together. Title. Descriptions. Like I do. Streams. Stop streaming. Upside is I focus entirely on the project. Downside, yeah, it's essentially all in. Downside is project doesn't get any attention or interest, and I have very little project. For me is intrinsic value, but I will on the order of months. Okay, let's do this. Download Obsidian. Actually, I'm not sure if do you pay the 30% fee when you use the Apple App Store? Like if I install Obsidian here and then I pay through this, I imagine they open up a a separate page. What is the password? I think I'll go into Obsidian here. I'm going to lay out all the trade-offs between these different options. And then I'm going to throw them into Claude, because I need to figure out what I'm doing. Obsidian Web Clipper is currently turned off. What is that? Oh, that's what I thought I was installing Obsidian. I just install spyware. Do I uninstall? Files. Download Obsidian so I can lay it out and throw it into. I'm really not sure what I should. Is that you, Darcy, or is that someone else? You can see there's one person watching, but if you just joined, I'm trying to figure out if I should keep streaming and making videos or if I should just give up on that and focus entirely on doing happy groups, because I want to get happy groups done, but I'm like starting to look at jobs and stuff now and killing me that I haven't finished happy groups. if I were to take a job, because I wouldn't have any time to work on it anymore. And the streams are a big distraction from making progress, because I'm explaining what I'm doing as I'm doing it, and then there we go. New note. Stream. Not to stream. I really like you. So I have been streaming for a couple months. I started streaming before I really started on. I was mostly streaming some infra setup, as I started to make big push, get something done. Had the idea for happy groups for a while now, but I wasn't really actively pursuing it. I kind of used the streams initially as a way to get myself at the computer pushed to make progress. Without the streams, I found I could put off without the streams, I found I could put off sitting down and making progress, because you could always do it later. Now I find that when I'm at the computer, the streams are a decent distraction. I often don't do small amounts of work. Okay. Our Windows, because I want to get it all green. And then just the talking about what I'm doing as I'm doing it, and trying to get thumbnails, descriptions. All this little focus and time. Now I find that when I'm at the computer, the streams are a decent distraction. I often don't do small amounts of work in, say, 1 or 2 hour windows, because I want to get it all in stream. And then just the talking about what I'm doing as I'm doing it and setting it up pretty much every day when I start streaming. As soon as I start streaming, I yawn. The last day, as I'm playing Okay. I notice this only happens when I'm streaming. I don't yawn nearly as much. Just doing the work. Is there some psychological aversion to talking about what I'm doing? I know there's value in doing the stream and talking about this stuff and putting myself out there, but I don't know that I feel that every day I turn. Separately, recently, I've been looking at potentially getting some jobs. The streams are also a little harder because I can't music I want on stream. Copyright. So I'm still having to listen to the same music over and over. Recently I've been looking at potentially getting some jobs, and it drives me crazy that I haven't gotten happy groups done. And that I'm not putting in as much time as I want. I know that if I were to spend, say, 10 hours a day for a month or two in a row, then I would make a ton of progress. The issue for me, an issue for me is that the streams have value and they kind of edge the happy groups work a little. If happy groups doesn't pan out, happy groups doesn't get any interest, then at least I have the content I created, work I did, and then I can share that, splice it together, create video for others. So it gives me other potential avenues for things useful or helpful. I guess I should make that. I think I have a few potential options right now. A lullaby. Lose my mind. Okay. It's funny because I don't even think I can on stream. I don't think I can even say all the reasons. And I can't. The issue for me is if I say all my motivations for everything on stream, it just has repercussions for. Let's just see what Claude says to this. I don't know what I expected. A lot to unpack here. On the yawning, that's almost certainly a stress anxiety response. Yawning is a well-documented reaction to mild performance anxiety or cognitive tension. The moment you hit go live, you shift from builder mode into performer explainer mode. Those are generally different cognitive tasks. Like psych talk, like you read programming stuff, and the programming stuff obviously is true or not true, and like you have to make some judgments, and sometimes it's just making stuff up. But it's funny, like when you're talking about psychology stuff, it's like the underlying stuff was made up to some degree. Like it's not completely made up, but it's just there's a lot of hand waving, and so it's like here, you know, there's even more hand waving. You would have no idea if something was completely wrong or not. Because the same thing's true with the original content. The moment you hit go live, performer explainer mode, and those are generally different cognitive tasks, your brain is managing the work and audience simultaneously. The fact that it only happens on stream, and specifically when you're narrating, and is a pretty strong signal that your streaming format itself is creating low-grade friction against the actual work. Bigger picture, I think the most important thing you said is that you need to make money on the order of months. That reframes everything. The streaming as hedge argument makes sense in a world where you have a long runway. But if your timeline is months, the hedge has to actually be worth the cost. And right now it sounds like the cost is significant. You're avoiding 1 to 2 hour windows of productive work, you're spending energy on thumbnails and descriptions and lighting, you're listening to music you don't enjoy, and you're running through the start of every session because you don't want to be performing. Looking at your options, I think B and D are the most honest ones to take seriously. And A is probably the worst choice given that, even though it's the default. Option A is where you are now, and you're telling me it's not working. You're not putting in hours and you want your streaming overhead is real. Option C sounds like it preserves the downside, still thinking about content. But the one upside of streaming, the forcing function is sit down. I see. Yeah, I was wondering. Because option B is... Option A is to keep streaming, the way I'm doing it now. Trying to talk and stuff. Option B is streaming without talking at all. Like, literally just streaming. And not worried at all about the audience. Option C would be recording without talking. But yeah, it doesn't force me to sit down at the computer. The real question is whether you still need the forcing function. You said you initially used streams to get yourself to the computer. Are you past that? Because if you can now sit down and do 8 to 10 hour days without the streams as an accountability mechanism, then D is probably your highest expected value path, given it's funny. Like this highest expected value path, that was were my own words the reason that it says that? Because this isn't like a normal way of talking. It's like a trader way of talking. Like, I mean, obviously people talk this way. It's just, you know, not usual in like psychology and stuff. A couple. What are we doing here? Option C. Yep. Real question, yeah, forcing function. You build the thing, you ship it, and if it works, you have something way more compelling than yeah, I agree with this. The videos, the streams are not as important as getting the thing done. If you're not confident you'll actually sit down without the stream, then B is a reasonable middle ground. The stream is a body doubling mechanism, but drop the performance aspect entirely. No explaining, no thumbnails, no worrying about entertainment value. Just you working with the camera on. That preserves the accountability on the raw footage archive while removing most of the overhead that's slowing you down. One thing I'd push back on gently, the idea that happy groups doesn't get interest, the stream content gives you something to show. In practice, development stream VODs with no editing. Yeah, I know that. The scenario where happy groups fails, but the streams... I meant more that the streams can be edited down to short form content. Real head for your career isn't the content, it's the skills and experience. Also, my experience is that the skills and experience you build while working a project like this really translates into the ability money. At a company. Most employees never done anything like this. So they don't great ability to judge difficulty, work, knowledge. For foreign content, yeah, it's a meaningful different proposition than raw VODs. Edited clips of you solving interesting problems or expanding concept can actually find an audience. That said, it still requires editing after the fact, so it's worth honest about whether you will actually do that editing or if it becomes another thing on the pile. Realistic plan to turn stream footage into shorts, that's a genuine app. If it's more someday I could, then it's functioning as a psychological comfort, you know, costing real productivity now. On the skills point, you're right. I was being a bit too optimistic there. The market mostly doesn't reward. I built a scratch by myself the way it should. Hiring processes are largely pattern matching on resumes, credentials, interview performance, someone who ground through leak code. Just tell me what I want to hear. Reiterating what I already think. Ground through leak code. This is right. Keywords will often get picked over someone who architected and shipped a whole product solo. Frustrating but real, which actually makes your point about wanting tangible artifacts even stronger. A portfolio of content or a launched product with users is more legible to the outside world, and I learned a ton building this. That shifts my take somewhat. The content hedge is more real than I initially suggested, but I'd still come back to timeline pressure. If you're looking at jobs, and if you, so this is the thing, like the models are particularly not. I mean, it's like a good Rapidaki effect, and also making sure I'm not missing something. But for the most part, I mean, this thing can't make any decisions, right? At the end of the day, the decisions come down to whatever I think is best, and I have no, I mean, it's there's no right answer. It's a chaotic system, and like, it's path dependent too, so. Yeah, you kind of always have to be updating your priors and knowledge. A launch product you can point to, a library of short-form content, or some combination that's diluted because you split focus. The overhead concern is still real if the content has more value than I initially credited. Then the other aspect is that, let's say I have some interviews lined up with companies. I should really study for those interviews because the interviews have almost nothing. My issue right now is that happy groups exist. I have all these things pulling at me. And I constantly have to consider them because I can't safely go all in without thinking about the consequences, trade-offs, myself and others. I can bet everything on myself, but if that doesn't work out, then I have very little to show for it. think of it as similar to the people who try to get the game. In a D1 program. They had to practice, which every day, and at the end of the day, they gave up a lot of other. I do have time right now to entirely focus on happy groups, but what? But what? I do have time to right now to focus on. But I'm not secure in my position right now. This makes me consider I don't know, better to take this. You're describing something that's genuinely hard and I don't think I have a clean answer. I want to separate out a few things because I think what you're feeling is a real signal and some is anxiety. Financial insecurity piece is real and it matters. That's not a distraction, that's your nervous system correctly telling you that risk has consequences. People around you, depending on you, is real too. These aren't things to power through with motivational thinking, they're actual constraints that deserve weight. Am I selfish and maybe I don't have the skills? Threads feels different. Those sound like the kind of thoughts that show up when you're under pressure and uncertain. I'll eat you alive. That's not my problem. Clearly you have more skill than you did 10 years ago. The NBA analogy is interesting, but it's not quite correct. A D1 player can't really transfer those skills elsewhere. A software developer who built a product has a real applicable skills regardless of whether the product takes off. You're not building on raw talent in a ball tournament, you're building on something transferable value, even if the harder question is the one you're circling around. You have competing priorities that all feel urgent, and committing fully to any one means accepting real risk on the other. Happy Group's interview, prep, streaming, financial stability, they're all pulling from the same finite pool of time and energy. You can't optimize for all of them simultaneously. I think what might actually help most isn't figuring out the right answer in the abstract, but giving yourself a concrete decision with the timeline. Something like, I'm going to spend X weeks focusing primarily on Happy Groups. If by that point I don't have Y, I start interview prep and job search seriously. That turns an open-ended existential into a bounded experiment. The anxiety of what if I'm wasting my life is way worse, and the commitment is indefinite than when it's deliberate time box bet. I don't expect anyone would actually. I could do just a public log, like I could just write down what I'm doing. Not a lawyer. Play one on TV. ChatGPT. Setting it up is moderately involved, but not terrible. You need to create a nonprofit in your state, then apply to the IRS 501c. The IRS fee is $600, and smaller nonprofits. Okay, I think I gotta stop streaming. I think I need to record. Yeah, recording is valuable because I have those later. I like to have them out there as soon as I'm doing stuff. The recordings are just going to be so useless though if I'm not focused on talking and stuff. The streams are already not very useful because there's too much dead time and stuff, and I need the timestamp. Okay. Yeah, that's what we'll do. All right. Very. Really just spelled that. Okay. All right, that's what I'm gonna do. No more streams. Anyone's watching this? You're checking in later. I think I'm gonna stop streaming for a bit. Probably try this like this for the whole next week. No streaming, recording only, and see if I can really make some good progress. I'm also gonna see if I yawn when I don't stream at all. I don't think I do. So. Alright, I'm excited for that. A little bit of a change. Watching. Have a good morning. Watching later. On demand. Have a good evening, morning, afternoon. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.